War Thunder has had some big issues for a while now. Why are World War II tanks fighting Cold War tanks? Gameplay wise, it's not a big deal. Vehicles in real life are not balanced. They're built for different reasons and for different tasks to fulfill. War Thunder is a video game. The goal of the game is to destroy enemy vehicles by whatever means you can. The benefit of War Thunder being a video game is that the downsides, imperfections, reliability and impracticalness of vehicles can be overlooked. I'm not bothered by the fact that some vehicles may not be performing how they did to real life. What I'm bothered by is why a BMP with a tow missile is able to fight a King Tiger or Pershing. War Thunder was built as a World War II game, but over time most World War II vehicles that were relevant were added. So War Thunder turned to post-war vehicles for some new and exciting stuff. It's a good natural progression of direction. The point of playing War Thunder, if you don't care about the history of a specific vehicle, is that by playing the game, you unlock more vehicles that are faster and pack more firepower. For example, with aviation, you start with the American tech tree with a literal pea shooter with 2 tiny small machine guns. And then you work your way up to a P-51, which is a faster fighter plane with 6 large machine guns, to a Sabre jet, and then to the apex of the American tech tree, an F-14, a jet that can break the sound barrier and carries a radar that can track multiple targets on the battlefield and fire air-to-air missiles. The same thing goes for tanks and ships, from a T-26 to a T-72, from a small PT boat to HMS fucking Hood. Where World War II and post-war vehicles overlap the most is in War Thunder ground forces and Navy, but I'm not going to focus on the Navy as, let's face it, not many people play it. But overlap with historical World War II planes fighting post-war planes happens, but it's not nearly as bad as tank forces. In ground forces, it can be very immersion breaking, seeing post-war tanks fighting alongside World War II vehicles. I'm not even complaining about Tier 4 or 5, in Tier bloody 3 there are multiple post-war tanks that fight with World War II vehicles. In my view, there is a distinction between what makes a tank fit for World War II and truly immersion breaking. Tanks like the ARL-44 and the IS-3 weren't really ready for World War II, but they're a product of its time period, with the same tactics and designs for that time. There were also vehicles like the ASU-57, which were built many years after World War II, but again they look like they could fit into World War II. And they don't have advanced weapon systems, high fire rate guns, stabilizers and ATGMs. Vehicles that don't really fit into World War II are the R3, the BTR-ZD and the BT-76. They don't really fit with World War II's theme or style. The R3 has a rapid firing 20mm gun that outstrips the fire rate of any World War II 20mm gun. BTR-7D, same thing. It's using a ZSU-23-2 system, which is a towed anti-aircraft gun from the bloody future. It's from the 60s. It's also mounted on a BTR hull. The BT-76 has a stabilized gun. These vehicles are relatively balanced at their BRs and do have their downsides. It's just they don't fit into a World War II game. The vehicles that truly bother me are around BR 6.7, which is the late World War II era of King Tigers, Pershings, IS-2s and other heavy tanks, let alone the super heavy tanks. You're playing late World War II, but are fighting with post-war tanks. For fork's sake, you could be playing a King Tiger and fighting with the Bundeswehr that are driving Leopards. And 99% of the South African vehicles that are in the British tree, what are they doing? They don't fit in World War II. It's a bloody Rhino. It's from the fucking future. And it's firing alongside a Pershing. Fiat and the stupid little tank turreted armoured cars. And Sweden, oh, don't get me started on Sweden. The Stritzelwagen cheese wedge and the SPG with that giant ass big gun autoloader. And the BMPs. BMPs of ATGMs. You could die to ATGMs in World War II vehicles. It is so dumb. Keep in mind, when you pick a vehicle you want to play in War Thunder and you take it into battle, you could be facing vehicles that are up to 1 or lower than 1 BR. So a 6.7 loadout can face vehicles that are 7.7, for example. It's so dumb that these late World War II vehicles can be going up against these post-war vehicles. So, here is a possible solution. Split the post-World War II vehicles into their own tech tree area that will have 2 separate factions, Blue and Red, NATO and Warsaw Pact. Once you unlock X amount of rank 5 vehicles, then you can start the research into this tech tree. Or probably buy your way in. This is Gaijin and they're free to play game after all. These vehicles will be fighting only other vehicles in this new tech tree era. This way Gaijin can make sure they're fighting only on the larger maps that are more suited for bigger and badder vehicles of the post-war era. It also means that the World War II vehicles will hopefully not have to be on maps like Cargo Port anymore. And also with this new split tech tree, helicopters, I guess, say goodbye to World War II. It was rare that it could happen, but it still could happen, and it's nice that they're now relegated to the Cold War. Splitting the tech tree into East and West would also make more sense when it comes to the random mix of post-war German vehicles, like the East German MiGs and the West German F4s, that end up fighting side by side on the same team. I can also see some issues with my idea that are caused by having only two factions. It could get boring if it's always red versus blue. You may be repeatedly facing the same 2 or 3 vehicles over and over again, so a solution could be to have mixed matches, which is what happens when there's a lot of demand for one faction. So that way there's a chance for relatively historical lineups of the classic blue versus red, and if there are more players queued for one faction, then there will be mixed battles. This is the same system Gaijin uses when there are way too many players queued up to play one faction. Like when people wanted to grind the F-14, there were lots of Americans fighting each other on both teams, because they both wanted to get their new shiny top tier fighter. Splitting the tech tree to World War II and post World War II vehicles would not have been possible a few years ago, but over time Gaijin has really fleshed out the post-war era, and it's coming together very nicely. I think it's at least time to start talking about this possible change happening. As Gaijin marches on into the future of Gen 4 fighters and modern MBTs, it would be nice if they could look back at the game they started from and take a move to fix the mixed history issue. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.